Welcome to Movie Rehash. Today, I'm going to explain an action, thriller movie released in 2022, titled, Bullet Train. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie begins in a Tokyo hospital. Yuichi Kimura, also known as the father, is next to his son Wataru's bed. Wataru was pushed off a roof when Yuichi wasn't there. Yuichi's own dad, called the elder, shows up and tells him that dads should keep their families safe. Yuichi leaves to look for the person who harmed his son. An assassin called Ladybug is back to work after a break. He finds the name funny because he doesn't think he's as lucky as real ladybugs. Ladybug is also stepping in for another assassin, Carver, who is unwell. He talks to his boss, Maria Beetle, who tells him to get on a bullet train going from Tokyo to Kyoto. His job is to get a money-filled briefcase with a train sticker on it. While he's heading there, Yuichi accidentally bumps into Ladybug, making him drop a key and his train ticket. Ladybug breaks into a locker and sees a gun inside, but he decides not to take it, even though Maria wants him to. On the train, there are two assassins who pretend to be brothers, Tangerine and Lemon. They were sent by a crime boss known as the White Death to watch over his son, who has a drug problem and can't be trusted alone. Lemon is really into a show called Thomas the Tank Engine and compares people to characters from the show. Tangerine tells Lemon about how White Death used to be a Russian traveler and ended up working as the right-hand man of a Yakuza boss named Minagishi. Eventually, White Death formed his own gang and betrayed Minagishi, killing him in the process. Yuichi gets on the train to follow a lead about who pushed his son, Wataru, but he's unexpectedly tased by an assassin called the Prince, who pretends to be a schoolgirl to hide her true identity. When he wakes up, she confesses that she pushed Wataru to draw Yuichi in because he supplied the briefcase to Lemon and Tangerine. Now, she wants Yuichi's help to set up the briefcase in a way that will harm White Death. The Prince has also rigged a gun to explode if it's triggered. To make sure Yuichi cooperates, the Prince reveals she has a henchman at the hospital ready to harm Wataru if she doesn't hear from her. Ladybug successfully retrieves the briefcase but is informed by the conductor that he must exit at the next stop because he didn't have his ticket with him. As he prepares to leave, he encounters another assassin known as the Wolf. In a flashback, it's revealed that Wolf climbed the ranks in the cartel under a boss named Saguaro and later got married. Tragically, everyone at Wolf's wedding, including Saguaro and his wife, was poisoned. He believes Ladybug is responsible for their deaths and tries to kill him. A tense brawl ensues in the bar car, during which Wolf's knife strikes the briefcase and accidentally pierces his own heart, leading to his demise. Ladybug conceals Wolf's wounds and contacts Maria. She informs him that he once worked as a cocktail waiter at Wolf's wedding, and the tequila served there was tainted with poison from a boomslang snake, which had been stolen from a zoo in Tokyo and is actually on the train. Lemon and Tangerine realize that the briefcase is missing, and they find the son has also been poisoned and passed away. They carefully cover his face and clean up the blood before setting out to locate Ladybug. While on the train, Ladybug encounters Lemon in the quiet car and remembers him from a previous job in Johannesburg. A scuffle ensues, with Ladybug attempting to disarm Lemon. Ultimately, Ladybug manages to knock Lemon out and put sleeping powder into his water bottle. Ladybug then swaps clothes with another passenger and communicates with Maria once more. She informs him that another assassin known as the Hornet has been hired by White Death and is also on the train. At the same time, Tangerine needs to exit at the upcoming stop briefly to meet with White Death's associates and reassure them that the plan is proceeding as intended. Tangerine locates Ladybug and confronts him, convinced that Ladybug poisoned White Death's son. A heated battle ensues, and at one point, Ladybug opens an emergency door, nearly causing both of them to be thrown out of the moving train. They manage to pull themselves back inside just in time. White Death contacts Tangerine and warns that if they don't arrive with the son and the briefcase, he will harm everyone on the train. In an attempt to deceive White Death's men, the two assassins pretend to be brothers and use a different briefcase. However, Ladybug accidentally opens it, exposing their ruse and forcing them to rush back onto the train. In a daring move, Ladybug kicks Tangerine off the train, but Tangerine manages to hop back on board before it speeds away. Lemon encounters Yuichi and Prince, sensing that neither of them has good intentions. He shoots Yuichi, aware that Prince isn't to be trusted. However, Lemon unwittingly consumed the spiked water and soon loses consciousness. Taking advantage of the situation, Prince shoots Lemon in the chest and hides both him and Yuichi in the bathroom. Ladybug encounters Hornet, who had previously disguised herself as an anime character on the train, and later switched clothes with the concession girl. She stole the boomslang snake from the zoo, using its venom to cause gruesome deaths characterized by bleeding from every orifice. Hornet poisoned everyone at Wolf's wedding, where she worked as a pastry chef. A fierce battle unfolds between Ladybug and Hornet, who is there to collect her payment. Hornet tries to jab Ladybug with a venom-filled syringe, but Ladybug manages to give her a lighter jab while injecting her with the majority of the venom. In a desperate move, Hornet attempts to use the antivenom, but Ladybug seizes it first and watches as she slowly succumbs to the venom's effects, crawling away in agony. Tangerine discovers Lemon's lifeless body in the bathroom and is determined to track down his killer. He contacts White Death once more, and White Death reveals that he bought all the tickets to Kyoto, ensuring that only a few passengers remain on the train. Tangerine crosses paths with Prince and almost falls for her facade, but he spots a sticker of the character Diesel from Thomas the Tank Engine, a sign that Lemon had left to signal her true nature. Realizing the deception, Tangerine is on the verge of eliminating Prince when Ladybug reappears and confronts him. Their intense fight concludes with Ladybug shooting Tangerine in the neck, leaving him to bleed out before he can warn Ladybug about Prince's true intentions. Ladybug attempts to persuade Prince to leave the train at the next stop, but she skillfully manipulates him with her innocent act, causing him to hesitate about getting off. Meanwhile, the Elder boards the train after overhearing Prince's suspicious phone conversation, sensing that something is amiss on the train. He takes a seat near Ladybug and Prince. However, Ladybug becomes frightened when the boomslang snake appears and bites him, prompting him to retreat. The Elder confronts Prince, who prepares for her henchmen to harm Wataru. To Prince's surprise, the Elder had prepared for this scenario and had his own assassin posing as a nurse, who eliminates Prince's henchmen before he can reach Wataru. Frightened, Prince flees, and Ladybug returns. The Elder has a conversation with Ladybug about how he believes in the idea that everything happens for a reason, leaving him with a new perspective. He also shares his own story about being Minagishi's original confidant before White Death's betrayal, revealing his vow for revenge against White Death for the loss of his wife. Yuichi and Lemon eventually wake up, with Lemon realizing he was wearing a bulletproof vest. Upon discovering Tangerine's lifeless body, Lemon becomes furious and wants to pursue Ladybug. However, Yuichi and the Elder intervene, convincing them to put their differences aside and collaborate as they prepare to confront White Death together. The train arrives in Kyoto as White Death prepares to board. Prince confronts him, and a shocking revelation unfolds. They are father and daughter. Prince sought to gain her father's attention because he favored his son. She tries to make him use the rigged gun to end his life, but White Death simply walks away, refusing to comply. Meanwhile, the others confront White Death outside, while his henchmen attempt to open the rigged briefcase. White Death explains that he orchestrated the presence of everyone on that train as part of a grand plan for revenge. He sought vengeance for the death of his wife, who was killed in a car accident that had been intended as an assassination attempt on him. Lemon and Tangerine had eliminated White Death's men during a job in Bolivia, and he had provided them with information about other assassins. He also blamed his son for his wife's demise, as her attempt to bail him out of his criminal activities had led to her death. Hornet had been lured there because she had poisoned the surgeon who could have saved his wife's life. Finally, White Death believed that Ladybug was Carver, the one who had organized the assassination attempt. He had counted on all the assassins to eliminate each other. In a sudden turn of events, the briefcase explodes just as Lemon manages to get the train moving. Ladybug races back onto the train and is pursued by White Death and his henchmen. The Elder fights White Death on the train while Ladybug and Lemon deal with the henchmen as the train goes crazy fast. While they defeat the henchmen, Ladybug tries to stop the train. Lemon and the last henchman get thrown out as the train crosses a bridge. Just before White Death can harm the Elder, Ladybug stops the train, and Elder gets a chance to hurt his enemy really bad. The train then goes off the tracks and crashes into a town. The men who survive leave the train. White Death tries to kill Ladybug, but he accidentally shoots himself in the head. Then, Prince tries to harm Ladybug and the Kimuras, but he gets hit by a tangerine truck. Maria comes to save Ladybug, and they say goodbye to the Kimuras. Ladybug now sees life in a more positive way and thinks he's lucky, but then a telephone pole falls on Maria's car, so they have to walk. At the end, we find out that Lemon survived the fall from the train. He takes control of the tangerine truck and uses it to run over Prince as payback for Tangerine. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie recaps.